He pretended to sleep to test on his maid's daughter. What the child did next changed his life forever. Marcus Thornwood had built his empire on one unwavering principle: trust no one. At 34, he'd amassed a fortune that most could only dream of, but the price had been steep. Every relationship, every connection, every moment of potential warmth had been sacrificed at the altar of self-preservation. His penthouse overlooked Manhattan's glittering skyline, a fortress of glass and steel that reflected his carefully constructed life. Inside, everything was pristine, controlled, measured. The only variable in his meticulously ordered existence was the woman who cleaned his home 3 times a week. Elena Martinez had worked for Marcus for 6 months. She was 28, quiet, and desperately competent. She never asked questions, never lingered, never tried to make small talk. It was exactly what he wanted. What he didn't want was the complication that had arisen 2 weeks ago. Mr. Thornwood, Elena had said, her voice barely above a whisper, her eyes fixed on the marble floor. I need to ask you something, and I understand if the answer is no. Marcus had looked up from his laptop, his ice blue eyes betraying nothing. Go on. My babysitter fell through. Just for tomorrow. I have nowhere else to turn. She'd paused, swallowing hard. Would it be possible to bring my daughter with me? She's 3. She'll be quiet. I promise you won't even know she's here. Every instinct screamed at him to say no. Children meant chaos, noise, unpredictability. But Elena had never asked him for anything. Her work was impeccable, and there was something in her eyes, a desperation he recognized from his own childhood, that made him pause. Fine, he'd said curtly, but she stays in the service areas. I don't want to see her, hear her, or deal with any disruptions. That had been 2 weeks ago, and true to her word, Elena had kept her daughter invisible. Marcus would occasionally hear a soft giggle from the laundry room or catch a glimpse of tiny feet disappearing around a corner, but the child, Sophia, he'd heard Elena call her, had remained largely a ghost in his home. But Marcus Thornwood didn't trust ghosts, and he certainly didn't trust people. So tonight, as he lay in his massive bed in his master suite, he decided to conduct a test. He'd send Elena to organize his library, a task that would take at least an hour. The child was supposed to be in the kitchen, coloring quietly. Marcus closed his eyes, regulated his breathing, and pretended to sleep. He wanted to see what happened when people thought he wasn't watching. It was how he'd learned every important truth in his life. The minutes ticked by. Through his closed eyelids, he tracked the soft afternoon light filtering through his windows. His penthouse was silent except for the distant hum of the city below. Then he heard it, the softest patter of tiny feet on his hardwood floors. His body tensed imperceptibly, but he kept his breathing steady, his face relaxed. The footsteps came closer, hesitant, careful. Marcus had installed premium flooring that didn't creak, but he could sense the small presence approaching his bed. What was the child doing? Looking for something to steal? Children were unpredictable, untrustworthy. He'd learned that lesson early. His own childhood had been filled with people who'd pretended to care only to take what they wanted. The footsteps stopped beside his bed. Marcus waited, his jaw tight beneath his carefully neutral expression. This was it. This would prove what he'd always known. Everyone had an angle. Everyone wanted something, even innocent-looking 3-year-olds and their struggling mothers. He felt the mattress shift ever so slightly. The child had climbed onto his bed. His mind raced through possibilities. Was she reaching for his watch on the nightstand? His wallet? Was this some elaborate scheme Elena had concocted? But then something happened that Marcus Thornwood, billionaire, strategist, man who'd anticipated every possible human motivation, had never, ever expected. Tiny arms wrapped around his torso, a small, warm body pressed against his side, and a voice, sweet and innocent and absolutely certain, whispered words that shattered something deep in his chest. I love you, Daddy. For a man who'd spent 15 years building walls around his heart, those 4 words hit like a wrecking ball. Marcus's eyes flew open. He looked down to find Sophia curled against him, Her small dark curls splayed across his expensive sheets, her chubby arms wrapped around him with complete trust. Her eyes were closed, her breathing already evening out as if she'd found the safest place in the world. His first instinct was to pull away, to call for Elena, to end this immediately. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the absolute peace on the child's face. Maybe it was the way she'd called him Daddy, with such natural affection, as if it were the simplest truth in the world. Marcus Thornwood had never been anyone's daddy. He'd never planned to be. His own father had been a man of business, cold and calculating, who taught Marcus that love was a weakness exploited by the clever and the cruel. His mother had left when he was 5, choosing her freedom over her son. He'd been raised by nannies who'd smiled to his father's face and ignored Marcus the moment they were alone. He'd learned early. People performed affection when it benefited them. Real connection was an illusion. Trust was a fool's game. So why was this child, who barely knew him, who he'd deliberately avoided, clinging to him like he was her anchor? Sophia, he said quietly, his voice rougher than intended. The little girl's eyes opened slowly. They were enormous and brown, framed by impossibly long lashes. When she saw he was awake, her face lit up with a smile so radiant it actually made his chest hurt. "You wake," she said happily, making no move to release her grip on him. "I thought you sleeping forever, like princess." Like a princess? Marcus found himself asking, confused by his own willingness to engage. In Mama's story, princess sleep and sleep until someone love her wake up. Sophia's speech was adorable in its imperfection, her 3-year-old grammar charming despite himself. "You sleeping, so I love you wake up." Marcus felt something unfamiliar prickling behind his eyes. "Sophia, I'm not your daddy." The little girl's smile didn't waver. "You are now," she said with the absolute certainty only a child could possess. "I picked you. You can't just pick someone to be your father." "Why not?" She tilted her head, genuinely curious. "Mama says we pick our family with our hearts. My heart picked you." Before Marcus could formulate a response, before he could explain the fundamental flaws in that logic, he heard a gasp from the doorway. Elena stood frozen, her face drained of color, her hands clutched together as if in prayer. "Sophia, get down right now." Her voice shook with fear. "Mr. Thornwood, I am so sorry. I don't know how she got past me. I was just in the library and—" "Elena," Marcus said, and something in his tone made her stop mid-sentence. He looked down at the child still wrapped around him, then back at the terrified mother in his doorway. For the first time in years, Marcus Thornwood didn't know what to do. His instinct was to fire Elena immediately, to remove this disruption from his life, to restore order and distance and control. But when he tried to imagine his penthouse without Elena's quiet confidence, without the occasional soft laughter from the kitchen, without knowing that somewhere in his cold, empty home there was someone who smiled like sunshine, he couldn't do it. "It's fine," he heard himself say. Elena blinked. "What?" "I said it's fine." Marcus carefully sat up, Sophia still clinging to his shirt. "She didn't break anything." "But sir, this is completely inappropriate." "I promise it will never." "Elena." He met her eyes, saw the fear there, the desperation of a single mother who couldn't afford to lose this job. "It's fine." The relief that flooded her face was almost painful to witness. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much. Sophia, honey, come here. We need to let Mr. Thornwood rest." "No," Sophia said simply, tightening her grip. "Sophia Maria Martinez right now." "But Mama, he's my daddy now. I picked him." Elena's face went from relieved to mortified. "Sophia, we talked about this. Mr. Thornwood is not your father. He's my employer. Do you remember what that means?" "It means he gives you money so we can eat," Sophia recited dutifully. "But he can be my daddy too. Peoples can be two things." Marcus watched this exchange with fascination. Elena was clearly a good mother, patient, firm, loving. And Sophia was bright, affectionate, startlingly perceptive for her age. How about a compromise? Marcus heard himself offer, surprising everyone in the room, himself most of all. Elena looked at him warily. Sir, Sophia can stay while you finish your work today. Here in this room. With me. Mr. Thornwood, I couldn't possibly. You're paying her to color in the kitchen when she could be somewhere comfortable? He gestured to the sitting area by his windows. There are better views here. It wasn't about the view. He knew that. Elena knew that. But neither of them acknowledged it. What Marcus didn't acknowledge, even to himself, was that for the first time in 15 years, he didn't want to be alone. The afternoon sun painted Marcus's bedroom in shades of gold. Sophia had finally agreed to release her death grip on him in exchange for permission to color at his coffee table, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of Central Park far below. Marcus sat in his leather armchair, laptop open but forgotten, watching the child work with intense concentration on what appeared to be a drawing of a house. "Why are you drawing a house?" he asked, then immediately wondered why he was making conversation with a 3-year-old. Sophia looked up, her eyes bright. "It's for you. Every people needs a house in their heart." A house in their heart? She selected a red crayon with great deliberation. Mama says some people build their houses with walls so tall nobody can come in. But that makes them lonely. So I'm drawing you a house with lots of windows and doors, so people can visit. Marcus stared at this tiny person who'd somehow seen through him in 5 minutes better than his therapist had in 5 years. He'd stopped going to therapy, of course. The woman kept wanting him to explore his feelings and work on trust issues. As if trust was something that could be fixed like a broken bone. "What if someone doesn't want visitors?" he asked quietly. Sophia considered this seriously. "Then they're scared." Mama was scared too before. Scared of what? Of everything. When my other daddy left, Mama cried a lot. She thought we would be alone forever. Sophia spoke matter-of-factly, without pain, as children do when recounting things they don't fully understand. But then she said we have each other, and that's a family. And families are brave together. Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Your father left. Before I was born. Mama says he wasn't ready to be a daddy." She looked up at Marcus with those impossibly wise eyes. "But you're ready. I can tell." "Sophia, I'm not." "You're lonely," she interrupted, with the blunt honesty only children possess. "Your house is pretty, but it's too quiet. Houses should have laughing." Before Marcus could respond, Sophia abandoned her crayons and climbed into his lap. She did it so naturally, as if it were the most normal thing in the world, as if he'd been her father forever. His body went rigid. No one touched him. He had rules about physical contact, boundaries that were clearly established. But this child either didn't know the rules or didn't care. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice strained. "Hugging. You look like you need one." She wrapped her small arms around his neck and rested her head on his shoulder. "Everybody needs hugs. Mama says hugs are how hearts talk to each other." Marcus sat perfectly still, his hands hovering in the air, unsure where to put them. He should move her. He should call Elena. He should end this right now. Instead, slowly, carefully, as if handling something precious and breakable, he let his arms come down around the small body in his lap. Sophia sighed contentedly. "See? Your heart was talking. It said it was sad." "Hearts don't talk, Sophia." "Yes, they do. You just have to listen really quiet." She pulled back to look at him seriously. "Your heart is very, very sad. Did someone hurt it?" Marcus Thornwood had negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching. He'd fired executives without hesitation. He'd walked away from relationships without looking back. But this question, from this child, nearly undid him. "A long time ago," he admitted, surprising himself with the truth. "Mama says when hearts get hurt, they need extra love to get better. Like when I fell and got a boo-boo on my knee. It needed a Band-Aid and kisses, and then it was okay. Some hurts don't work that way. Then you need more kisses." Sophia planted a wet, sticky kiss on his cheek, then another on his forehead. "There. That's 2. Tomorrow I'll give you more. Mama says healing takes time." Marcus couldn't speak. He just held this child who'd somehow, impossibly, found her way past every defense he'd spent decades building. A soft sound from the doorway made him look up. Elena stood there, but this time, she wasn't afraid. Her eyes were filled with something else entirely: understanding, compassion, and a sadness that mirrored his own. "She has a gift," Elena said softly, stepping into the room, "for seeing people's hearts. I've tried to teach her to be more careful. The world isn't always kind to people who love so freely, but she doesn't listen." "Where did she learn it?" Marcus asked, his voice rough. "To be so trusting? Loving?" Elena smiled sadly. "Not from me. I've spent the last 3 years teaching her to be cautious, to protect herself. But Sophia, she believes the world is good. She believes people are good, even when they've been hurt. That's dangerous." "I know." Elena looked at her daughter, still curled in Marcus's lap like she belonged there. "But it's also beautiful. And maybe the world needs more people like her." "She called me Daddy," Marcus said, not sure if it was a statement or a question. Elena's face flushed. "I'm so sorry about that. Her father was never in the picture. She sees other kids with their dads at the park and..." She trailed off. "I'll talk to her. It won't happen again." But as Marcus looked down at Sophia, who'd fallen asleep in his arms, her small hand clutching his shirt, he found himself saying something he never expected. "What if it does?" Elena froze. "Sir? What if?" Marcus struggled to find the words. "What if she wants to call me that? Would it be so terrible?" "Mr. Thornwood, I don't think." "Marcus," he interrupted. "If your daughter is going to call me Daddy, you should probably call me Marcus." Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus Thornwood's carefully constructed world began to change in ways he'd never imagined. It started small. He told Elena to bring Sophia every time she came to clean. He claimed it was more efficient than her scrambling for childcare, but they both knew that was a lie. The truth was that Marcus had discovered something startling. He liked having them there. The penthouse was different with Sophia in it. Her crayons appeared on his coffee table. Her stuffed rabbit took up residence on his couch. Her laughter echoed through rooms that had never heard such sounds. And Marcus found himself smiling. It was unsettling. His business partners noticed. "You seem different," his CFO commented during a meeting. Less what?" "Terrifying," the man offered with a nervous laugh. Marcus supposed he was different. He'd started leaving work at 5 instead of 8. He'd turned down a weekend business trip to Tokyo. He'd done the unthinkable. He'd made his penthouse a place he wanted to be. Because Sophia was there. She'd taken to calling him Daddy with such natural ease that correcting her felt cruel. And Elena, after initial protests, had stopped fighting it. There was something in her eyes when she watched them together. Relief, gratitude, and something else Marcus was afraid to name. One evening, as Elena prepared to leave, Sophia threw her arms around Marcus's legs. "Don't want to go home," she announced. "Want to stay with Daddy." Marcus felt his heart constrict. "You'll see me on Monday, Princess." That's forever away. He knelt down to her level, something that would have been unthinkable a month ago. "How about this? What if you and Mama came for dinner on Sunday? We could order pizza." Sophia's eyes went wide. "Real pizza? With cheese?" "So much cheese it'll probably be illegal in several countries." She giggled and hugged him tight. "You're the best daddy ever." Over her head, Marcus met Elena's eyes. She looked shocked, uncertain. "You don't have to," she said quickly. "Really, we don't want to impose on your weekend." "Elena," Marcus said quietly, "I'm asking because I want to, not because I feel obligated." Something shifted in her expression. "Okay," she said softly. "We'd like that." That Sunday changed everything. Marcus ordered not just pizza, but everything he thought a 3-year-old might like: chicken nuggets, fries, ice cream, juice boxes. His kitchen, usually pristine and unused, became a chaos of paper plates and napkins. Sophia was in heaven. She sat at his massive dining table, her legs swinging because they didn't reach the floor, and told him elaborate stories about her stuffed animals while demolishing an impressive amount of pizza. Elena watched them with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. There was happiness there, certainly, but also fear. After Sophia fell asleep on his couch, clutching her rabbit, Elena finally spoke the words that had clearly been weighing on her. "Marcus," she said quietly, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." He set down his wine glass. "Okay. What is this?" She gestured between them, at the sleeping child, at the remnants of their dinner. "What are we doing here?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But I know I don't want it to stop. She's getting attached to you. Really attached. And if this is just, I don't know, a phase for you, or some kind of temporary interest, it's going to destroy her when it ends." Marcus felt that like a knife to the chest. "You think I'd do that to her? I think you're a billionaire who's used to getting what he wants when he wants it and losing interest just as quickly." Elena's voice shook but didn't break. "I think you've never had a real relationship in your life, and I think you're a self-proclaimed expert at not trusting people. So yes, Marcus, I'm terrified that you're going to wake up one day and realize this is too complicated, too messy, too real, and you're going to walk away. And Sophia's heart is going to break." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. "You're right about most of that," he said finally. "I've never had a real relationship. I don't trust people. I've built my entire life around keeping everyone at arm's length." "Then why?" "Because she changed everything." He turned to face Elena, and for the first time in his adult life, he let someone see him completely vulnerable. "That day she climbed into my bed and called me daddy, I was pretending to sleep. I was testing you both. I wanted to see what you'd do when you thought I wasn't watching because I assumed you'd steal something or manipulate me or prove that everyone always wants something." Elena's eyes widened. "Marcus."
"But she didn't do any of that."
"She just loved me. For no reason. Without asking for anything in return. And it broke something in me, Elena. Or maybe it fixed something. I don't know anymore." His voice cracked. "I've spent 34 years believing I was unlovable, that trust was weakness, that caring about people would only lead to pain. And then this tiny, perfect person decided I was worth loving, and He couldn't finish. The words were stuck in his throat, tangled up with 15 years of carefully buried emotions. Elena crossed the room and did something remarkable. She took his hand. "She sees the real you," Elena said softly. "The person underneath all the walls and defenses. The person who orders too much food because he wants to make sure a 3-year-old has choices. The person who leaves work early just to read her a story. The person who's been so lonely for so long that he forgot what it felt like to be truly seen." A tear slid down Marcus's cheek. He didn't try to hide it. "I'm going to mess this up," he whispered. "I don't know how to be what she needs. I don't know how to be a father." "Neither did I know how to be a mother," Elena replied. "But we figured out. We show up, we try, we love them even when we're scared."
She paused.
"The question is, are you willing to try? Really try? Because Sophia deserves someone who's all in, not someone who's going to run when things get hard." Marcus looked at the sleeping child on his couch. Her face was peaceful, innocent, trusting. She believed in him completely. She'd given him her heart without hesitation. The old Marcus would have run, would have convinced himself this was too risky, too uncertain, too dangerous to his carefully ordered life. But the new Marcus, the one this little girl had somehow created, knew what he had to do. "I'm all in," he said firmly. "I don't know what that looks like exactly, but I want to be her father. If you'll let me." "It's not just about me letting you," Elena said. "Are you ready for everything that means? The tantrums, the sleepless nights, the mess, the chaos, the fear? Being a parent means your heart lives outside your body. It means being terrified every single day that something will hurt them. It means putting someone else first, always." Marcus thought about his empty penthouse, his sterile life, his carefully maintained distance from everything real. "I've been terrified for 15 years, he said quietly. but it's been terror of being hurt, of being betrayed, of being alone. This is different. This is terror of not being enough for someone who deserves everything. He met Elena's eyes. I'd rather be terrified with them than safe without them. The next 3 months were the most challenging and rewarding of Marcus's life. He learned that 3-year-olds woke up at ungodly hours and considered 6 a.m. sleeping in. He learned that just 5 more minutes always meant 20. He learned that chicken nuggets cut in the wrong shape were inedible, that socks had to be just right, and that the word no could trigger meltdowns of epic proportions. He also learned that small arms around his neck could heal wounds he didn't know he had. That "I love you, Daddy" could make a bad day perfect. That watching Sophia sleep, her hand in his, filled him with a fierce protectiveness he'd never known existed. Elena had moved in 2 months ago, after Sophia asked why they had to leave Daddy every night. Marcus had offered them the guest wing, 3 bedrooms, private bathroom, sitting room. He tried to make it clear he wasn't asking for anything, wasn't expecting anything, just wanted them close. But somewhere along the way, the boundaries had blurred. It started with shared dinners every night, then movie nights on Fridays, Sophia between them on the couch. Then Elena asking his advice about Sophia's preschool options. Then Marcus attending a parent-teacher conference like it was the most natural thing in the world. They weren't a couple. They'd never even kissed. But they were something. Something Marcus had never experienced and didn't have a name for. One night, after putting Sophia to bed, a ritual that now involved 3 stories, 2 songs, and at least 4 glasses of water, Marcus found Elena on the terrace, looking out at the city. "She asked me something today," Elena said without turning around.
What?
"She asked if you were going to be her daddy forever, or just for now." Marcus's chest tightened. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that her daddy loves her very much and isn't going anywhere." Elena finally turned to face him. "Was I right to tell her that?" "Yes," Marcus said without hesitation. "I'm not going anywhere. Ever. Even when she's a difficult teenager who hates you? Especially then. Even when she's a young adult who makes terrible decisions and breaks your heart? Even then." Elena smiled, but her eyes were sad. "You've changed so much. Sometimes I look at you and can't believe you're the same man who hired me 8 months ago." "I'm not," Marcus said honestly. "That man was half alive, going through the motions, building companies and making money because he didn't know what else to do." He moved closer. "Sophia saved me."
And so did you.
"I didn't do anything. You trusted me with her, despite every reason not to, despite my reputation, despite my walls, despite everything. You let me into her life." "You earned it," Elena said softly. "Every single day, you show up. You try. You love her so fiercely it takes my breath away." They stood in silence for a moment, the city sparkling below them, their daughter sleeping safely inside. "Elena," Marcus said quietly, "I need to tell you something, and I don't want you to feel any pressure or obligation. But I can't keep it to myself anymore." She turned to him, her eyes wide. "I'm falling in love with you," he said. "Maybe I already have. I don't know when it started. Maybe that first day, watching you be so brave and vulnerable and strong all at once. Maybe later, watching you be such an incredible mother. Maybe it was all those little moments, sharing Sophia's life, building something neither of us expected." Elena's breath caught. "I know this is complicated," Marcus continued. "I know we started this for Sophia, and she has to come first. I know you might not feel the same way. But I needed you to know that this, us, whatever we are, it's real for me. You're real for me." For a long moment, Elena didn't speak. Then, slowly, she reached up and touched his face. "I've been falling in love with you too," she whispered. "And it terrifies me, because I've spent the last 3 years building walls too. Different walls than yours, maybe, but just as high. I told myself I didn't need anyone, that Sophia and I were enough, that opening my heart again would only lead to pain. And now I see you reading her bedtime stories, and I think maybe love isn't about being safe. Maybe it's about being brave enough to be vulnerable again." Marcus pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. We're both terrified. Completely. Wanna be terrified together? Elena laughed, and it sounded like hope.
Yeah.
I really do. When they kissed, it felt like coming home. 6 months later, Marcus stood in his living room. No, their living room, watching Sophia spin in circles in her flower girl dress. Daddy, look. I'm a tornado. A very beautiful tornado, he agreed, adjusting his tie for the 100th time. Elena emerged from the bedroom, and Marcus's breath caught. She wore a simple white dress, elegant and understated, perfect for the small ceremony they'd planned. Her eyes met his, and in them he saw everything. Love, trust, hope, fear, courage. You look beautiful, he said, his voice rough with emotion. You clean up pretty nice yourself, she teased, then grew serious. Are you sure about this? It's not too late to. Elena, he interrupted, taking her hands. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. You and Sophia are my family. Have been for a long time. This just makes it official. We're really doing this. We're really doing this. Sophia stopped spinning and threw herself at Marcus's legs. Are you my forever daddy now? Marcus knelt down, taking her small hands in his. I was always your forever daddy, princess. From the moment you climbed into my bed and decided you loved me. But now it's official. I'm adopting you and marrying your mama, and we're going to be a real family. We were already real, Sophia said matter-of-factly. But this is better, 'cause we get cake. Marcus and Elena burst out laughing. The ceremony was small, just a few close friends, Elena's mother via video call, and the judge who would finalize Sophia's adoption and marry them in one swoop. They decided to do it all on the same day. Why wait when they'd already wasted so much time being afraid? As the judge spoke the words that would legally bind them together, Marcus thought about the man he'd been a year ago. Cold. Distant. Convinced that trust was weakness and love was a liability. That man had been so wrong. Do you, Marcus Thornwood, take Elena Martinez to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do, he said, his eyes never leaving Elena's face. And do you, Elena Martinez, take Marcus Thornwood to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. And do you, Sophia Martinez, accept Marcus Thornwood as your legal father? Sophia pumped her fist in the air. I do. I picked him. Laughter filled the room. The judge smiled and declared them a family. When Marcus kissed his wife, Sophia squeezed between them, demanding to be part of the hug. They stood there, the three of them wrapped together, and Marcus felt something he'd never experienced before. Peace. Belonging. Home. That night, after the small reception, after Sophia had eaten too much cake and fallen asleep on the couch, Marcus carried her to her room, the room they'd decorated together, painted pink because she insisted, even though she'd change her mind next week. He tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and whispered, I love you, princess. Thank you for choosing me. Sophia's eyes fluttered open. Thank you for letting me, Daddy. Your heart isn't sad anymore. No, he agreed, his throat tight. It's not. 'Cause we fixed it. With hugs and love and being a family. You fixed it, Marcus corrected. You and your mama showed me what I'd been missing all along. What was that? Everything, he said simply. Later, lying in bed with Elena curled against his side, Marcus stared at the ceiling and marveled at how completely his life had transformed. A year ago, he'd pretended to sleep to test a woman and her child, expecting to find betrayal and self-interest. Instead, he'd found something far more dangerous. Unconditional love. A 3-year-old had hugged him and called him daddy, and in that moment, every wall he'd built had started to crumble. She'd seen past his money, his reputation, his carefully constructed defenses, and found something he'd thought was dead, his heart. What are you thinking about? Elena murmured sleepily. About how wrong I was. About everything. Everyone's wrong sometimes. I was wrong for 15 years. I built my whole life on the idea that trust was weakness, that caring was dangerous, that love was a trap. He pulled her closer. And then Sophia climbed into my bed and changed everything. She has a gift for that. No, Marcus said, pressing a kiss to Elena's hair. We have a gift, the gift she gave us. The gift of being a family. Of trusting again. Of believing that love doesn't make you weak, it makes you brave. Elena lifted her head to look at him. You know what I think. What? I think Sophia didn't just give us a gift. We gave her one too. We showed her that love is worth fighting for. That families can be built, not just born into. That broken hearts can heal when people are brave enough to try.
Marcus thought about that.
About his broken heart and Elena's. About the walls they'd both built and the courage it had taken to tear them down. About the little girl sleeping down the hall who'd somehow known exactly what they all needed. We're going to mess up, he said. I'm going to make mistakes. There are going to be days when I don't know what I'm doing. Same, Elena agreed. But we'll figure it out together. Together, Marcus repeated, liking the sound of that word. I spent so long being alone. I'd forgotten what together felt like. And now I can't imagine anything else. They lay in comfortable silence, two people who'd been broken in different ways, pieced back together by a 3-year-old who believed that love could fix anything. The next morning, Marcus woke to small feet padding into the room. Sophia climbed into the bed, wedging herself between her parents with practiced ease. Morning, Daddy. Morning, Mama. Good morning, Princess, Marcus said, pulling her close. Are you happy? Sophia asked, looking up at him with those impossibly wise eyes. Marcus looked at his daughter, and his wife. He thought about his transformed life, about the laughter that now filled his home, about the love that had replaced loneliness. Yes, he said, meaning it with every fiber of his being. I'm happy. Good, Sophia said, snuggling deeper between them. 'Cause we're gonna be happy forever and ever. I decided. Elena laughed. Is that so?
Yep.
That's how families work. They decide to be happy, and then they are. Marcus smiled at Elena over their daughter's head. They both knew it wasn't quite that simple. There would be hard days, difficult moments, challenges they couldn't yet imagine. But they also knew something more important. They would face those days together. As a family. With all the messy, complicated, beautiful, terrifying, wonderful love that came with it. You know what, Princess? Marcus said, kissing the top of Sophia's head. I think you're absolutely right. And in that moment, wrapped in the arms of the family he'd never expected to have, Marcus Thornwood, the man who'd spent his whole life running from love, finally understood what it meant to be home. It wasn't a place. It wasn't even a feeling. It was the sound of a little girl calling him Daddy. The warmth of his wife's hand in his. The knowledge that he was loved, truly and completely, not for what he could give, but for who he was. He'd tested them once, expecting betrayal. Instead, they'd given him everything. And he would spend the rest of his life showing them that their trust, their love, had not been misplaced. Because Sophia was right about one thing. She had picked him. But what she didn't know was that he'd picked them too. Forever.